Welcome to my channel. A while ago I reacted to a remix of Redgum's I Was Only 19. It was a rap version, and boy did I get a bunch of unhappy people. They said this is not nearly as good as the original, and I got requests for the original, so that's what I'm going to do now is Redgum I Was Only 19. I think this goes back to the times of the Vietnam War. But before I do that, I have to thank you for coming to my channel. Thank you for the traffic, for the people from all over the world coming to my channel and saying such nice things. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm so humbled by it, and I just have to thank you in every video. As I always do, I will feature the artist by putting their links in the description field of my video. So if you will click on the more link on the description field, that will expand it, and then you can see those links. And I ask that you support these artists by subscribing to their YouTube channels, by following them on social media, and by buying their music if you have a mind to. So this is the original Redgum I Was Only 19.
Mum and Dad and Denny saw the passing out parade at Puckapunyal. It was a long march from cadets. The 6th Battalion was the next to tour, and it was me who drew the card. We did Canungra, Shoalwater before we left, and Townsville lined the footpaths as we marched down to the quay. This clipping from the paper shows us young and strong and clean. And there's me in me slouch hat with me SLR and greens. God help me, I was only 19. From Bungtow riding Chinooks to the dust at Newey Dat, I'd been in and out of choppers now for months. And we made our tents a home, VB and pin-ups on the lockers, and an Asian orange sunset through the scrub. And can you tell me, doctor, why I still can't get to sleep? And night time's just a jungle dark and a barking M16. And what's this rash that comes and goes? Can you tell me what it means? God help me, I was only 19. A 4-week operation, when each step could mean your last one on 2 legs. It was a war within yourself, but you wouldn't let your mates down till they had you dusted off. So you closed your eyes and thought about something else. And then someone yelled out, "Contact!" and the bloke behind me swore. We hooked in there for hours, then it got almighty raw. And Frankie kicked a mine the day that mankind kicked the moon. God help me, he was going home in June. I can still see Frankie drinking tinnies in the Grand Hotel on a 36-hour rec leave in Bungtow. And I can still hear Frankie lying screaming in the jungle till the morphine came and killed the bloody row. And the Anzac legends didn't mention mud and blood and tears, and the stories that my father told me never seemed quite real. I caught some pieces in my back that I didn't even feel. God help me, I was only 19. tell me, doctor, why I still can't get to sleep? And why the Channel 7 chopper chills me to my feet? And what's this rash that comes and goes? Can you tell me what it means? God help me. I was only 19.
Well, I've got I have to decide what to say. First of all, for those of you who are just getting to know me, I did not serve in combat. I was never in Vietnam. I served on the East Coast of the United States doing secret work. So I have no experience in the jungles of Vietnam. But I do have a lot of friends, close friends, who served in Vietnam, and they have shared a lot with me, and I understand on an intellectual level what they went through. You can't ever understand what war is like for real unless you're in it. But there were a number of things in that song that struck me. When he mentioned dust off, what he's talking about is the helicopters. And in Vietnam, Vietnam was the first war where helicopters played such a important role. They took men to the battle and they brought men from the battle. And there was no sweeter sound to the ears of a combat infantryman than the sound of a dust-off chopper coming to get them, because that meant they weren't going to be shot at anymore. And when you served in the United States Army, you served 12 months in Vietnam. So just think about for a minute what this would have been like. You train and train and train in the United States, and then you get on an airplane and you land in a foreign country that in the summertime is super hot and dusty. In the spring and fall, it's extremely hot and wet, and you sweat like crazy. And when you land, you're in this big, huge base where you get processed, and it all seems kind of sort of like what it was in the States. And then you go to your forward operating base, and that's in the middle of nowhere. And you could be shot at any time. And you have to go out on patrol, and you have to try and find the enemy because they hid in the jungle. And finding the enemy usually meant at least one person was going to get shot. That's how you found them. When somebody got shot, you knew you'd found the enemy. And you do this for 12 months, and then you hop on a plane and you go home. And in the cargo hold of the plane are the coffins of all your buddies who didn't make it. So imagine that. You've been through hell for 12 months. You're sitting on an airplane, thankful to be alive, and underneath your seat, underneath the floor of the place where your seat is bolted down, are the bodies of your buddies. And then you go off and you fly and you get back to your home, and it's like nothing's happening. There's no war. There's no nothing. It's such a jarring experience that a lot of people just couldn't deal with it. Some of them dealt with it by going back, re-enlisting and going back to Vietnam because they felt more at home in the jungle. They felt more alive in the jungle. They felt more normal in the jungle than they did at home. But sooner or later, you had to come home. And when you came home, you had people booing you and hissing you and calling you baby killer and spitting on you. And yes, all these things have been proven. You know, I know that the liberals like to say this stuff never happened, but they absolutely did, and there's proof of it. And all you have to do is ask guys who came home. Some guys didn't experience it, some did. But it was such a different war. You know, in World War II, when you went in the military to fight in World War II, they said you enlisted, quote, for the duration. And of course, in 1942 or 43 or 44, you wouldn't know what that meant because you can't see the end ahead of time. So for you, it was just like, I'm going off to war and I'm never coming home. But in Vietnam, you went for a year and then you left. And it was like every individual was on a different timetable. So your buddy Bob took off for home 6 months before you did. And your buddy Roy, who you just got to know, would be in the jungle for 6 months after you left. And Fred, who sleeps in the cot next to you, he's going to be gone in 3 months. And that's if they survive. That's if they're not wounded so badly that they have to be medevaced out of the country and taken to a hospital somewhere. It was a strange war. And the saddest part for me about it, about the whole thing of the Vietnam War, is that it's been so misrepresented and so lied about that hardly anyone even understands what that war was about. And the reason why it is that way is because the communists in Vietnam were very good at propaganda, and the Americans were very good at swallowing propaganda. And so they believed the lies that they were being told, that Americans were not welcome in Vietnam, and that we were fighting an illegal and unjust war and intervening in somebody else's conflict. None of that is true, but you know, it would take way too long for me to explain that to you now. And I'm getting far off the track of the film, but the song. But the things that he sings about in that song are very real. I mean, the you know, jumping off the choppers and going into the jungle and being shot at and then coming back. And then sometimes when you go, somebody gets hurt or killed. You know, it talked about the one guy who stepped on a mine and he was going home. No telling if he was going home alive or dead. But it was a different war. It was a completely different war from anything that Americans had ever been through before. And as far as I know, anything they've been through since, although I think in Afghanistan and Iraq, they were rotating in and out like that too. Maybe that's the norm now, I don't know. But anyway, wouldn't it be nice if we got to the point where there were no more wars? And the biggest problem that we have in America is that Americans don't want to go to war, but our politicians do. Of course, they don't have to fight, so it's no big deal to them. They send 19-year-olds off to war, and they come back changed or dead or, you know, crippled. And it's no sweat off those politicians' backs at all. They'll send them back again. They'll do it over and over again. They'll interfere in the affairs of other countries constantly because they can. And I wish there were a way we could just, I don't know, eliminate Congress and start over. eliminate all of the politicians in Washington and start with a new fresh batch that stood for the Constitution and were not warmongers. But we don't have that kind of power, I guess. At least not one of us. Maybe united we could. But anyway, I'm going way far off the track. I like this song. I remember it from back then. I remember hearing it back then. And it's the melody is kind of melancholy sounding, and it is for a reason, because anybody who was there feels melancholy about it. And a lot of the stuff that the details of the lyrics are very much accurately portraying what took place there. So I would encourage you to read the lyrics and think about what it's like to be a young man sent off to war, especially if it wasn't what you volunteered for. Anyway, that's Redgum. I Was Only 19. And I pray for my viewers every day. I pray for each and every one of you that you will live an abundant life, that you'll be healthy, that you'll live a long time, and that God will keep you safe from harm. I pray He'll do the same for every person that you love. And I pray most of all that you will be anxious for nothing, but in all things, through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, you will make your requests known to God. And the peace that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. This is the Vietnam Era Vet, out.